Let's talk about a team that we don't expect to be in the running for the NFC West Championship.
No.
But it's another interesting team to talk about the wide receivers on specifically. That's the Seattle Seahawks, who are down near the bottom of our projections, including having the worst offensive projection. Although I will point out, when you sub in Geno Smith as their starting quarterback instead of Drew Lock, which it now looks like they're really going to go with Geno Smith instead of Drew Lock, that actually does improve their projection a little bit.
Drew Lock's getting a lot of buzz. Am I getting that wrong? Drew Lock is getting a lot of buzz.
Yeah, but Geno Smith is getting all the first-team reps.
So far, Drew Lock has not had a first-team snap in practice. And we're 2 practices in. It's not let's not throw in the towel and declare this battle over, but so far, it's Geno's team.
So it brings up the question of what to do about great receivers with lousy quarterbacks when you go from a great quarterback to a lousy quarterback, because I think we agree DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in particular is really kind of underrated. Like everybody knows DK Metcalf is a physical freak, but Tyler Lockett has had great numbers for a couple of years, really efficient as a deep route runner. And what happens when you give those guys Drew Lock or Geno Smith?
So this is interesting. I don't know if people remember this. A year or two ago, Russell Wilson had a perfect passer rating on throws to Tyler Lockett. He's been an efficient monster. He doesn't get the volume of a lot of other guys, but when they throw to him, it's a big play 3/4 of the time. DK is interesting because target for target, throw for throw, he had better numbers last year from Geno Smith than he did from Russell Wilson. And that includes the start of the year before Wilson's finger was injured. Now, a lot of this is that one long touchdown he had against New Orleans, and we're talking about a 13
it's a small sample size. It's 3 games.
Yeah, but it's frankly a more a sign that the Wilson to Metcalf connection was broken than the Smith to Metcalf connection is gold. But Geno, if he's the quarterback, is going to look for DK a lot. Whether he can get the ball to DK remains a question, but he's going to try. He's going to try.
Matt, what do you got on this?
I have a tough time not allowing myself to visualize that these guys are going to be really good this year, because from an individual talent perspective, they're so good. Like, I think Metcalf is extremely promising. Obviously, he's been great as just like that ISO X receiver. He's not the full route runner, whatever, but who cares? Because he posts great success rate versus man press coverage, running slants, posts, goes, and he's developed a little bit as a route runner as his career has gone on. I'm with Aaron, though. Like, Tyler Lockett remains one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. He's been at or above the 80th percentile in success rate versus man coverage for 3 straight seasons. He's been really good against zone coverage as like that inside vertical slot receiver. And he actually drew like a higher target share from Geno Smith, even though the results were in Metcalf's favor. Like, because you mentioned he has those longer touchdowns, stuff like that. So I think the gap between these 2 guys in fantasy drafts, like, I don't know that I'm really interested in clicking either one of them, but I think the gap between them probably should close a little bit. But it's just hard, right? I mean, this is not a serious quarterback situation. I mean, Geno Smith, Drew Lock, 2022. How is this like? It's a non-serious way to enter a football season.
I did this a couple weeks ago. I go back to when Washington had John Beck and Rex Grossman in 2011 as their quarterback. So that was the worst quarterback competition I've ever seen, not counting a rookie or something like that. This is probably worse than that.
But it's a flame out. It's a guy who flamed out as a starter, Geno Smith, Rex Grossman, and like a guy that nobody thinks is promising except the head coach there in John Beck. Like, I used to live near DC in Fairfax, Virginia, and like the quotes that Mike Shanahan had about John Beck, it was like, what Dolphins games were you watching, my guy? Like, also, I mean, John Beck was also super old, but as for like a young player, but so yeah, you're right. That's a very good way to compare it. Just like a non-serious quarterback competition.
I mean, the one thing about these guys getting numbers in fantasy is that I can imagine that it would be not the third receiver is not going to get that many targets, whether it's Game or D. Eskridge.
Yeah. Did trade for Noah Fant though. That was part of the.
There'll be a 12 personnel team more than most teams. Going to go Fant and Disley as much as they can. Metcalf and Lockett are like as a 1-2 wide receiver, you can put them against just about anyone, and then they'll stand up. But the drop off to the third receiver is just it's a straight vertical line. They don't use them. They don't want them. They kind of don't like them. That's one less person to be big, I guess. So it's, D. Eskridge was hurt all the time. I think he's hurt again now. So right now it's Freddie Swaim's job to lose as a third receiver. They're only moved to upgrade a couple of 7th round picks and Marquise Goodwin, because just like they're the team that's going to make Geno Smith a starter, they're the team that's going to make Marquise Goodwin a star.
If you try to tell the story of how Seattle, and right, we know going into the season, every team has a possibility of being a contender, right? NFL, right? There's lots of randomness. There's a big range of possibilities. But when you try to imagine what it would look like for Seattle to be a contender, you imagine that Geno Smith would have to be like kind of average, and they would just have to be really driven by defense. And then you look at the defense, and you're like, no, it's not look like a top defense. It just doesn't. The personnel doesn't. There's some talented players here like Darrell Taylor and Jordan Brooks, and Jamal Adams is good if you use him right. He's almost gotten to the point of being so called overrated so much he's almost underrated, because there are things.
He's not a bad player. He's an overpaid player who they overtraded for. But he's not
if they want to do, and this is what they were doing moving towards last year, was doing more too high safety stuff. Jamal Adams is the wrong guy to be doing that.
No.
Right. And he's being fitted with a Winter Soldier arm. So keep that in mind, because of the surgical, they're fitting him with the Winter Soldier. He's going to be like Bucky. So that's going to make everything okay. Definitely get a lot of interceptions, fumble recoveries, and things like that when you're wearing an oven mitt to protect.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Joey Suck says the defense is average at best. The offensive line will be bottom 25%. Yeah. It is hard to see how the offense functions enough for them to be decent, and I think that that's basically true. Like this just looks like one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah. There's a delusion a lot of Seahawks fans have that because they drafted 2 tackles, the offensive line will be better. This overlooks the fact that Dwayne Brown was actually still really good last year. Yeah. Most rookie first-round tackles are not as good as Dwayne Brown was last year, so that's a downgrade. Ethan Pochers was not very good last year, but Austin Blythe has been terrible. So they're worse at left tackle, though they're worse at center. You could argue that the right tackle is room for improvement, except Jake Curran has been the top guy there, and he was nightmarish last year. And the other guys can't beat him out.
Undrafted rookie starter last year.
Yeah, so no, this offensive line looks terrible. Quarterbacks look like, if we're ranking teams 1 to 32 on quarterback, they're 32. Yeah. Carolina may have had an argument for the Mayfield trade. Now they are not in the discussion. They have a better quarterback than Seattle does. I went through a while ago trying to find how many backup quarterbacks would at least have a reasonable chance to start for Seattle. I came up with like a dozen.
It's really funny because I did not read. I'll admit I didn't read Bill Barnwell's annual piece on skill position players other than the quarterback who has the best weapons. But I got to think Seattle came out pretty good, because if
the top 2 wide receivers are good.
Lockett and Fant and Rashad Penny and what people think Kenneth Walker can do. Ken Walker now. Yeah. That's a pretty good group with no quarterback and no offensive line.
Right.
And no depth.
There's some silver
and
line.
No depth.
The running back duo is like weird too. I mean, Penny has only had this like one great stretch in his career. Obviously, he's just been injured, all that type of stuff. But he looked great, was explosive last year. But like that was in the confines of that offense with Russell Wilson. Who knows what? He's a total wild card. And then Walker obviously like has some. Can he actually catch passes? Michael Sean Dugar from the Athletic has said that Travis Homer is still going to be involved as like the third down back, because so. That'll be a fun offense to deal with all year for sure.
Does anybody have any idea what the offensive mentality is supposed to be? I mean, I watched them last year, and it was do stupid things faster with more energy.
I mean, it was a lot of running and a lot of going deep, but if you're going to be losing by 14 in the second half, you're not going to be able to run that much. You're just going to go deep.
It was,
and also every offense with Russ is the Russ offense. Like I don't care if you bring in, Brian Schottenheimer, you try to do like the Shane Waldron thing, like offshoot from Sean McVay. That was great. Like all of the talk in the offseason was, we're going to get Russ more layups, like have him do. And I felt like that was kind of a good theoretical fit for Russ. Like get him on the move. shots off play action, some of the layups that are in that Sean McVay offense. But to me, watching last year, for the most part, it just looked like the same old Russell Wilson offense, which I kind of feel like, by the way, Nathaniel Hackett's offense is going to strangely look a lot like the Russell Wilson offense. So I don't know. I think we might see whatever Shane Waldron's vision and Pete Carroll's vision for the offense is. I think we'll see it more this year than we did last year.
Last year was so weird. They were reasonably efficient. They just were never on the field. They had the lowest average time of possession of any team since the 99 expansion Browns.
Yeah.
And normally time of possession doesn't matter. It's what efficiency is what matters. But when you're at the extremes, things get pretty extreme. And that was pretty extreme.
That was very extreme. And it was an offense designed to generate big plays and nothing else, and a defense designed to prevent big plays and nothing else. So they were content to be on the defense in the field for a dozen plays at a time, hope they give up a field goal, and the offense gets a 50-yard touchdown or punts. And repeat for 17 weeks. It was
awesome.
Dude, I had to rewatch that season to write this chapter, and it was no fun. It was no fun. And
hey, at least they have a good punter.
It broke you.
They have a really good punter. A lot of practice. I got to write a lot about punting. Christ.
I think it comes down to Metcalf and Lockett and Cross with with a year of experience. These will all be really good pieces for Stroud or Young. They came out in the playoffs in 24% of the simulations. And this is one where I feel like the fact that our simulations this year were uber ultra conservative makes me uncomfortable. That number.
You would take the under on the playoffs then?
Yeah. I mean, Matt, if you don't know, if you haven't seen in the book yet, like our projections this year came out even more. We're usually very conservative, and they came out even more conservative than usual this year, like packed around 500.
All the teams pushed together, yeah.
And Seattle, it just 24% just seems way too high.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yes.
I mean, but I feel like they got the DVOA projections for offense right. 32nd.
Right.
Yeah, 32nd. And by the way, if you sub in Geno Smith, their offensive projection improves from 32nd to 32nd by less.
Love it.
But Michael Dixon, third in special teams projection.
Well, his punting average should go up since he went punting from midfield. He'll be punting from deep in his own end, so that'll boost his numbers.
It's a great point.
His Pro Bowl make it stronger.
Doug says a 2022 Seattle playoff team is a lot of other teams having quarterback injuries, and that I think also would Matthew Stafford would have to get injured for
his elbow would have to fall off.
A few teams like go missing. Their team bus gets like lost in the woods. Something like that.
It definitely the simulation was definitely a little conservative, like I believe in being conservative because there is more randomness in the NFL than people want to believe. It was too conservative this year, and this is one of the teams where you can really see it. It's just too conservative.